the other time I saw it. Actually, we are live right now.
Oh, perfect.
Just so you know.
I didn't get that disclaimer when we first started talking.
Isn't that exciting? We went here. Okay, hang on a second. No worries. We're there. It is there, right?
I think you might have to change that URL.
We'll go to this one.
Yeah.
Okay. I have my technical assistant here beside me,
No doubt.
and because I don't know all that much about this stuff. And this is new equipment, the restreaming stuff, and okay.
You do not have permission to live stream?
I don't know. Hang on, we got to play around with something. It's given us a bit of a hard time.
Of course. It's a computer. It's going to do that.
Yeah. This is all the same, right?
Yeah.
Nothing different here. I think actually we're up. Where's my? Yeah, I bet we are. Hang on. But I should see Mcleod in there too. Well, it says we're live, doesn't it? Just hang on a second. We are, in my opinion, we could be. Yeah. We are. But we don't have. Where's Mcleod? Okay, for some reason, we're not showing you. But
We are experiencing technical difficulties.
A little bit, yeah. Hang on. Will you go see what's come up on YouTube? Is anything? We're just experiencing technical difficulties. Exactly. No, I see, but it's just showing me, not. Sorry, Mcleod, we're just fiddling.
No problem.
Did you copy and paste all those keys and everything?
No, I didn't. Should I do that?
Yeah.
Again, you think? Okay.
I would.
All right. Okay. Well, no, it shows that. Actually, it's showing him here now. Look at this.
Okay.
Do you see it?
I'm just pulling that up right now.
For all of our friends that are wondering if we've gone crazy, it may be. I may have to do that whole thing again. That's right. Okay, you guys. Okay.
YouTube, he's up.
Is he? Oh, that's good.
And Facebook,
For some reason. There he is.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Well, it shows that
Okay.
actually it's showing him here now. Look at this.
We must be hilarious. It's to all this time, Jay.
Yeah.
While we're doing this,
Oh, that's good.
you were there, but I was there's quite a lag, so I couldn't see you, and not the whole time, but through some of it, and so now we are actually
Live on the custom live streaming service.
we are, yes, and for those of you that are watching, hi JR, happy anniversary, honey, love you, and was, we got a few people watching, which is great, and it's the beginning, and so Mcleod,
Mcleod. How you doing, Pops?
good. You're getting too old to be my son. You're gaining on me 2 years at a time.
I am pretty much, eh? Especially when I have the beard growth going on like you.
Uh,
I look way older.
you did. So I'm just going to introduce everybody to why we're doing this and who you are. It kind of, as things come upon me, this came upon me a bit on the weekend as I was watching the change in the world around us. And one of the things that I was noticing is that for myself, and I think others, is that we were getting a little housebound, many of us, and it's starting to dawn on us the seriousness of what was happening. And if it was all nothing, it was still, life was changing because we were home, and day after day, and all the news we were getting, the contact we were getting from the outside world was mostly, news about, the drama that's happening on the globe, the global drama news, and very little personal news. And so I have friends and family like Jay all over the world. And I thought, well, why not, bring some of the people that I love onto a call so that our community can see them. And now I did my first one this morning, Jay, and it was actually Alice Hung. You know Alice?
I may have met her. I don't. I
Okay,
can't draw.
well, a lot of people in Calgary know Alice, and I did her. She's in Zurich right now, so it was fun to get her perspective on what was happening. And she literally, she knows thousands and thousands of people, and it was a great interview. And Jay is we have known each other for many, many years from men's team and life. And lots of our communities have overlapped, the Burning Man community and the consciousness community and the men's team community, and it's just been so much over the years. And Jay and his family moved to the island 3 years ago,
coming up on 4.
my gosh, Jay, I know him as Jason. You go by Jay though a lot, don't you?
Jay primarily, yeah.
So Jay and I went through a lot of stuff together, including one that a road he traveled mostly by himself, but I got to watch really closely when Jay had a serious car accident, 12, 15 years ago?
It was 19 years ago, like 2 days ago.
Gee.
And it's funny because I only get reminded of it now whenever it comes up because of Facebook memory.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was 2 days ago. I was like, oh, that was 19 years ago.
19 years ago, and we were both younger, and Jay spent like 3 weeks in ICU.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah, and fell in love with ICU, and we can't get him out of there. So, after he recovered, and obviously he did, and there was some doubt though for a while. He went to study nursing, and has become an ICU nurse, which is really cool. And I always think, he's like in many ways one of the roughest, toughest guys I know in many ways, or at least he puts on that facade. and and I always think being a nurse is this loving, gentle, intimate practice, really, so I think he wears many hats. Of course, he needs to wear a hat based on the look we're getting there. So there's many things I could say about Jay. I love him, and get to watch him, spend some years, finding the right lady and getting married and starting a family and all that stuff. So we've got to we've been together as buddies for 20 years. Yeah. You were on men's. I did my men's weekend June '99, and you did yours in '98 or
98. Yeah, it was November 98.
And so just before I did. And so we know a lot of the same people for many years. We've buried a few and married a few and divorced a few.
Yep.
And so we have a community. So I wanted to get, in this call, you're what's happening where you are, and not just, about the virus, but how are you seeing people weathering staying home, and you get to go out because you go to the hospital. Are you in the hospital in Victoria?
No, in Duncan, where I live.
Wow. So it's a small regional hospital.
Yeah, correct. It's got about 140 beds. And I mean, I currently work in post-op recovery. That's my primary. But I also bounce in through the ICU as well as the emergency department. So I'm kind of going through all three of them.
Do you get to stitch them up sometimes or not?
Not a lot. I mean, I'll do some of the wound care in the emergency department and, some of the stuff that's in ICU. But no, generally suturing isn't part of a nursing.
It's not that regional.
Not quite that regional. No, if I was out in Haida Gwaii, I would get that option. So, yeah.
And
so yeah, I mean, if your question is what's the kind of lay of the land here?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, there's huge changes, and for those who are Game of Thrones fans, there's a kind of a whole feeling of being at the battlements of Winterfell, waiting for the White Walkers to attack. And so that's just a reference. But we're basically doing a lot of preparing.
Yes.
So we emptied out the hospital of non-critical or required patients, and really turning a lot of people, not so much turning people away, but sending people home that really don't need to be in the hospital. It's like, this is certainly one of those times where this is where the sick people go, and you don't want to be around the sick people of at least the COVID-19 thing. And so it's amazing, actually, it's quite remarkable at how little traffic the emergency department is now getting when normally it is packed, and how the sort of instead of it being the default thing of, I feel kind of bugged, I feel kind of ill, or I got this thing that's bothering me, or if I don't know what that is, I'll just go to the emergency department. Now people
runny noses. Yeah.
So it's really good. A lot of it is actually even coming down to people who are showing up that might even be currently infected with COVID and COVID-19 and are having a hard time with it, just like everybody normally would from a flu-ish type thing, i.e. they feel achy and trashy and headaches and lethargic and all that kind of jazz. It's like, okay, but you're eating, you're drinking, you're peeing, you're pooping, your mental status is good, and you can take a deep breath. We'll check their oxygen saturation levels and their heart rate and their temperature, and we go, you're fine, go home, suck it up. And we do that without even testing them at this point. So we're still ultimately there's this hurry up and wait where we've been preparing for quite some time, and a lot of our processes and procedures have changed, and they actually change daily on what's okay or what's not okay, and how we're managing the current situation, let alone what we think might be coming. And we don't really know we won't know for a couple more weeks, but we're preparing for that. And locally where I live, I'm expecting things to kind of explode here a bit. And that partially has to do with, we have quite a large homeless population here. We have a large First Nations population. And both those groups just don't tend to self-isolate well, and they don't tend to have great health necessarily. Their diets aren't great. They just they're a bit socially bound. And so once it starts getting into that particular, age or those sort of groups, it's probably going to run rampant for a while. But you know, this bug is definitely a bad, can have a really bad outcome on health for, you know, some individuals. And of course, it's always kind of been pointed at the older and the people who already have other illnesses, but it's actually affecting a lot of 30 and 40-year-old perfectly healthy people as well. So it's not like anybody's immune, but you know, the reality is, even out here on Vancouver Island, we have lots of blue hairs, you know, so as in like 70 plus year olds that are active and out there, lots of them. And they're obviously the biggest target. And
I
so,
think that's a big retirement. We used to say the newlyweds and the nearly deads.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you know, I think Vancouver Island overall is probably going to get hit fairly hard. Now, how quickly that happens and over what length of time that happens is still to be determined.
Well, every week we buy brings us closer to having some answer, you know, treatment wise.
Yeah, it does. And it, you know, it's really quite exceptional the way, for the most part, the world is kind of bootstrapped and managed to, you know, come together and share things and try and figure out how can we all manage this. And there's lots of, you know, rumor and conjecture, and there's a whole lot of we don't know. There's lots of you know, false information, there's made up stuff, there's all kinds of stuff out there. But you know, the reality is, overall, I think we're coming together quite well. And it only took about a week or so before when things really started kind of happening, both locally here as well as down in the US. So a couple weeks ago is when we really saw the social change, where all the businesses got on board and they're all sort of isolating and limiting the number of people who can come in. And some places you can't even get your own stuff, they have to get it for you. And so it's really quite interesting to see how it's been taken quite seriously locally here. So, you know, my view of the way we've been responding on the island has been quite good. BC, and especially Vancouver Island, tends to have quite a ingrained social preparedness and willingness to face, you know, catastrophe per se, because we're dealing with, at any moment we could have a massive earthquake and demo the entire island.
Or a tsunami.
Yeah, and I mean, the tsunamis are only ready for the West Coast, like the coast. And there's not that big a population out there, but yeah, everybody's aware of it. Everybody has their plan per se, or at least should, and everybody has their, you know, kit just in cases and stuff. So over here on the island, people are quite used to being prepared for who knows what. So this isn't a new, or rather the particular threat at the moment isn't something we faced before, but it's kind of in line with that. And so I think it's just easier for the populace here to kind of just go, okay, this is what we're doing now. But you know, it's been quite interesting. It's a great, like, social experiment, if you want to call it that, or, you know, just all the changes that have taken place. And now I live in a smaller town, and I live in a bit of a rural area where, you know, most of the people around where I live have acreages. And so
Just hang on a second, Jay. I want to kind of just do a quick reintroduction. More people are coming on, and I want to tell them who you are. So Jason Mcleod's a longtime friend of mine since '99. So 21 years we've been buddies, and he's currently working. He's a nurse and an ICU nurse, and doing post-op nursing right now in Duncan. On the island, and so this call and this conversation's about getting perspective and you know, a little news on what's happening elsewhere, and so Jay's got his finger on the pulse out there. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
So when you're doing an introduction, the easiest way is putting is I'm a critical care nurse.
Okay.
Critical care, because that covers ICU, post-op recovery, where I'm currently working primarily, and then also emerge, and I do all three. So yeah, I mean, some of the you know, beneficial things, shall we say, that I've been feeling, which is really a bit unusual for me. I'm pretty much an extrovert, and like being around people lots.
No.
And, yeah, imagine that. And I do get that, you know, extroversion aspect, or being around people when I'm at work, and I'm one of the mandated ones that has to, you know, do the frontline thing. So
are you masking up all day?
Yeah, anytime there's patient contact, yes. We haven't gone to a, you know, mask from the moment you walk through the door to every single, you know, moment you're there.
N95s or
No, right now, well, it depends on the situation. So if we're dealing with someone who has a suspicion of, because they have signs and symptoms, or they have a history of exposure, then yeah, we would be. or have been, and depending on what procedure we're doing. So some procedures are more dangerous than others, such as intubations and nebulizing, and there's a few different surgical procedures. So that stuff, yeah, it's full, like head to toe body condom, along with N95s and all the rest of it, face gear. So, but we haven't had that many, at least in Duncan, come through that we keep. We've been sending any of the critical COVID patients down to Victoria for the time being, and they've been the ones who've been dealing with the ones that are in the ICU per se. Because as most people may or may not be aware, if there's about one third of the people that get sick wind up with some sort of hospital care, and about one third of those wind up in critical care, wind up in the ICU, and there's very little leeway in there. It's kind of like you go to the hospital on your knee, you either need a little bit of care with a little bit of oxygen, and we're just going to watch you, or you're intubated and you're in ICU, because they once you start running out of the simple procedures of low levels of oxygen, the only next thing we can do is intubate you. There's a few steps normally in between there, but those are what we consider to be high risk treatments to those around, because they aerosolize the virus. So blah blah blah, technical stuff. But the reality is around here, even though I get my extroversion thing, but because the whole social thing has been taken away, i.e. we isolate, and I've got a small family, or young family, as in I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old and my lady, and we got a great backyard, and we've had pretty decent weather out here. We're fortunate where we live that we do have milder seasons, and it's been sunny and nice a lot of the time when we've been working in the backyard. And there's actually a really interesting pressure that's come off, and really that aspect of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Oh, some buddies are getting together tonight, or oh, I haven't seen him in a while, or I haven't done that in a bit, or whatever. The riding group's going out. I'd really like to get out for a ride. All that's like gone.
Yeah.
And it's not even gone because it's self-imposed. It's just the way things are right now.
Yeah.
And so that's really allowed myself and my family to we're just hanging out now. This is what we do.
Isn't that cool?
It is. It's fantastic.
That's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And it's, again, we're fortunate in that we have a nice backyard, and we can walk out the street. We can go down to the forest. There's some nice trails down there. If you encounter somebody, you just give them wide berth. You kind of, do the whole wave and, smile, and we all know we're in the same boat. Right. So
isn't that funny? I'm out, I walk every day, and it's sometimes people are more distant than ever. I mean, there's one thing to give each other a little bit of a space, but it's almost like there's a fear, and so often I'm a little over the top with my hellos,
right. Yeah.
How's it going? Come here, let me give you a hug. No, but I'm just a little more, because there's no need to be afraid of each other. We're all in this together, and I think there's a great need to be practical and and follow the game plan. I was a little slow on the uptake myself, but once I got it, I thought, okay, I'll do this and be careful. And I'm way younger than I look, but no, I heard that I'm way older than anyway.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'm not quite in the high concern group because I don't have any. I'm pretty healthy and all of that, but I am aware that I would like not to get this right away.
Right. And when this all started coming down the pipe, really about 3 weeks ago, I was kind of the mind that I either want to get this early, there's enough resource, or get this late after we figured out good treatments.
Yes.
And really, I could fall into either one of those categories still. Most of us could. Not that I suggest we run out, like someone rush out and expose themselves by any means. But you wouldn't be playing this exact same game in New York City right now.
Yes.
Right.
I was talking to my buddy, McNeil, Kenny.
Yep.
Kenny said that Calgary actually is, has more cases than anywhere else in Alberta. We're the leader here in Alberta, and Alberta is doing more testing than anywhere else in the country per capita.
Yep.
We've really stepped up the testing here, and our premiers really showed up. He's
Oh yeah, he has.
he's a bit of a local hero these days, you know, I've always been a bit of a fan, because we have other connections. He and I, let's not talk politics. But anyway, Alberta's has a unique set of shit that's going on. Not only, have we got the COVID thing, but the Russians and the Saudis are fighting over oil control globally. And, our oil's selling for like $4 a barrel. So everything's getting locked in. Like, people are just shutting it in. And we're in an interesting time here in our province. And but we'll see. I think we'll come out, you lived here a long time. We'll come out with guns blazing.
Yep, whenever that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you made a reference about a lot of testing, and so I've been tracking this. I was actually looking at my text messages there the other day, and it would have been almost 2 weeks ago now. But I was texting with a friend there in Calgary, and we were looking at the numbers in the U.S. and this is right when it's starting, and they had like 2,000 cases, sort of thing, and that was on Monday. And he said by the end of the week there'll be at 10,000 sort of thing. And sure enough, at the end of the week they're at 10, and now they're leading the world and all this kind of fun stuff. And so the reality is our numbers are low, but a lot of the reason why our numbers are low is that really we're not testing much. And so it's not fair for us to think that, we're doing really well and we're flattening the curve, because it's easy to have a flat curve when you have nothing to reflect on. And so there's very little testing that's taking place. And so, the two types of testing that's out there, in case anybody, is confounded by it, because there's lots of, banter in the news, is you can either get tested when you're sick, and that tells you if you have the actual virus or not, or if it's some other influenza, or you can get tested later, which is an antibody test to see that you have had it and you have the antibodies to it. And now the antibody test isn't common yet, but that's the one that's going to be, the cheap and the wide sweeping one that the UK is implementing that right now. And that one will be great from the standpoint of it's going to be cheap and easy to get. You can do it at home, and then you can get a verification that, I've actually had this and I'm fine now. Great. I can go back out and mingle, sort of thing. Right. And what we really kind of need to do before too long, in my perspective anyways, is actually have a way of designating ourselves that, almost like, hey, I'm wearing a green hat. That means I've been sick and I'm good now. I'm cool, sort of thing, right? When people wearing a white hat, they're isolation, and one wearing a red hat is like, don't come near me. I've got it.
Oh, we could do tattoos.
Tattoos, right in the middle of the forehead, right? But it's changing the color of the tattoo afterwards.
On the lip.
Yeah. That goes back to all kinds of historical things that we don't want to reflect on. But
crazy time.
But see, the reality is that it is going to get to a point where we're going to want to, being social with each other, and therefore we have to identify to a certain degree who's vulnerable and who's not.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's just kind of part of our current reality. So, as much as people get excited about how low our numbers are, or are reflecting like this isn't as bad as they say it's going to be, or what it was going to be, we just have no clue right now, because we're not testing that much. And so this is lingering, it's going around. There's lots of people that do have it that are just sick at home, which is great, which is where they should be. We won't know for months on what the actual numbers were.
So just as a note to that, Regan, my son, is in London. He lives in London, and he got sick last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he called the health services and told them the symptoms, and they said, stay low, stay home. Sounds like you
might got it.
And but he went through it in 2 days.
You went through that in 2 days, and it may or may not be that. Right. And that's just part of the problem.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. And who knows? And when he told me that he thought he had it, he masked up and went and got groceries. He didn't have the thing in the house. I played dad and said, hey, you could be down for 2 weeks if you do have it. I mean, because It seems to affect people in really different ways.
Yeah, it can.
And everybody in the country, everybody in the world who has a cold thinks they got it right now.
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, and it seems there's some evidence that seems to point toward uh, how badly you're affected by it can be. There's some attribution to how big a viral load you were exposed to. So what's been found is a lot of the nurses that are working front line and in highly active areas are coming down with it, and they're having bad responses, as in like they're getting really sick. And so the speculation is it has to do with the amount of viral load that they first take on. And so, for instance, if you're in you're commuting somewhere in a vehicle and someone's coughing and hacking, well, your viral load might be a lot higher, or your exposure might be a lot higher, and your response much harsher than if you pass somebody in the street and you happen to breathe in their air and it's a minor load that your body can take a little longer time to adapt to. So that's one of the speculations. And I know there's pros and cons, or rather, different sides of the coin for the whole wear a mask or not in public. And that's, if any reason to wear a mask, it would be simply to lower the potential of the viral load that you wind up contracting.
It's interesting. The other one that I suggest, like I've been working lately at Fresh Start. Have you heard? Fresh Start is a treatment center here in Calgary, and I've been working. It's kind of interesting. I haven't had a job since the '80s, and literally I haven't. But what a beautiful place for me to land, and part time, and kind of a relief. And I was going to go back to work the other day, and I said, "Are we wearing masks?" And they said, "Well, no." And I expressed a concern that because there's 50 men in this place, and the only way that this would come in is through the staff. Me bringing it in. Yep. And so the mask wouldn't be not to protect me, but to protect others. And that's one of the things that I think is the benefit of masks is it just may catch anything that's coming out of me.
Yep.
And as opposed to me being worried about me if I have it, and I could have it today and not know it, because sometimes we're asymptomatic for a long time, right?
Yeah, so it seems to be anywhere from like 2 to 10 days people can be asymptomatic, which is a long time. And so the funny thing about this bug is that it's it's like we're all playing a big game of tag, like thousands of people playing tag, but you just don't know who's it.
I know. I live with 3 guys, eh? And and we, when we've stopped going out socially.
Yep.
And totally, but not everybody had stopped at the same time, and we really got kind of hard on each other. I got hard on some of the guys. I said, "Look, hey, that's enough," because you don't know just because you like somebody. Chris Ionescu's posting, and we know you get around, David.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so not true anymore, Ionescu. That's like
anymore.
And
not at least since last week.
So we've been, we used up until a week ago, we were having, I sponsor a lot of guys in 12-step world, and we're having sponsees in doing, 12-step work, and we're not doing that. And it's all going to move to the back deck now, outdoors.
Yep.
And pretty soon we'll have spring here. So it's friggin'
in July.
When spring comes.
Yeah,
that's right. There is no spring. We go right into summer, but it'll come, and there's a part of me that thinks, wow, we could spend the whole summer hanging around the yard.
Yeah, and that is a possibility. I mean, we don't know. You mentioned about the isolate thing, and really that's what we're, this whole social isolation, and we're not really. I've been changing my framework around that. It's not socially isolating. We're physically isolated.
Physically distancing, yes.
Yeah. And so, right now you and I are socializing, and I thoroughly enjoy this. I miss this sort of thing. And so just people are socializing in different ways. And so, changing that framework from being socially isolated to being physically isolated, physical distancing is the important
Zoom
thing.
is crazy. Is it? That the whole 12-step world, I go to meetings, and I've been going to meetings forever in the 12-step world, and we've all gone on Zoom. There's in Calgary tonight, there could be 40 12-step meetings or 50 12-step meetings, with AA, CA, NA,
Yep.
GASA. I mean, it's just Zoom. I can't, it took actually tonight at 8 o'clock to come on for you about 5 minutes for it to upload. And I think because there's probably thousands of people coming on.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
in this household right now, we're having this, and my girls are with mom having a birthday Zoom party with one of our friends.
Wow.
That would never happen.
Crazy. There's another app called Marco Polo.
Hmm.
The men from MDI are using Marco Polo as it's very similar to Zoom, but Zoom, I don't know where they're getting the bandwidth. It's like holy Toledo. It's phenomenal.
I bet you their stocks haven't crashed.
Pardon me?
I bet you their stocks haven't crashed.
No, for sure not. But it's a new reality. Regan, again, is working with Deloitte in London, and he just rented a place closer to work so he could walk to work instead of an hour on the tube.
Great.
And then he hasn't moved in yet, and he's thinking, why would I do that? I could be working from home, for another year. And he's paying way more rent to be in the financial district.
Right.
So it's an interesting. The way we work could change. I mean, not for you, because
right.
But actually, medicine's changed hugely. If you need an expert in some field, you can find him online.
Yeah.
He can access the whole file in a minute and give his advice. I mean, I don't know that that's true, but I imagine that that's true. Is that true?
Yeah. So, it depends on what needs to be done as far as there's far less face-to-face required from like the physical presence when it comes down to generic medicine stuff. Certainly when it comes down to emergent scenarios, you pretty much have to have them there. But for instance, even in our own hospital, and I think this has been implemented in many hospitals around, is that, our hospital's on lockdown. The only people that come in there are either, staff, patients that are required to be there, and or visitors going to see somebody who's dying, actively dying. That's about the only actual visitors we allow. And so at the entrance of our hospital now, we have what we call ambassadors, and they're there to basically vet, first of all, should you even be here, period, and second of all, what's your possibility of being exposed, or are you sick with COVID-19. And so but in the emerge area, when all the emerge patients now get met by an ambassador, and that ambassador is often a fairly experienced nurse, often a triage nurse from emerge, and we've been turning away lots of people. And when I say by turning away, what I mean is someone will come in and they're sick, or they've got whatever particular issue. A lot of the time it's like, what, go talk to your GP, right? Do a Zoom call with them. And a lot of them are doing telehealth, right? Go talk to a pharmacist. You just, what, you're fine. We checked you out, preliminarily. There's nothing we're concerned about with you. You're a bit sick, go home. And so our emerge department doesn't even get a quarter of the traffic it used to. And really that shouldn't change even when things, go back to normal, because people just default go to the hospital and go to emerge whenever they have some illness or some issue. And there's a lot more resources out there that we have to start accessing so that we're not such a huge strain on the hospital itself. We have a much bigger health system that we could be accessing and dealing with. So there's going to be some changes that are going to remain, I think.
I want to tell you a quick story or something I've heard, that in Taiwan, everybody is in a health care system. All their histories in the system.
Oh, okay.
So Taiwan has very little or no COVID-19. They managed it. They know everybody. They know their status. They know where they are. When anybody,
they know where they're because they're tracking everything.
Well, to a certain degree, yes. I mean, everybody's GPSed in, and it's a different society than we have here. And of course, they all wear masks too, and they've been wearing them for a long time. Like it's culturally acceptable to wear a mask. You've traveled in Asia, and it's just the way it is, and I think we'll see that here.
Well, and I'm not adverse to the whole idea of being tracked through my phone and monitoring patterns. I mean, there's a certain element, if you're not worried about, having to hide what you're doing, then what are you fussed about? And, I get the whole, 1984 proverbial thing and, Big Brother's watching and how it could be construed against you or whatever,
Yeah.
So, but the reality is, I think there's a fabulous video I saw not long ago that showed the whole, where the X thousand beachgoers in Fort Lauderdale went during spring break, and how they tracked this one beach this one day, and where all those party revelers, all the teenage and university kids, all went back to their homes, and how those areas are also the biggest hit with COVID-19 right now.
Wow.
So, and they're just tracking the cell phone right
Wow.
now. They could probably obviously track down the actual person and their phone and who owns it or whatever, but certainly on this video it didn't show that. But they're a couple thousand people get scattered across the US, and suddenly it's like those are also a lot of the areas that are heavily affected now. And that's amazing technology, and it's so useful when, of course, done under benevolent usage. And we're
Yes,
always
yes.
concerned about the malevolent aspect of things. And but yeah, I mean, considering the number of things that are happening with this particular virus, and it just happens to be a really nasty virus, that's difficult to track on normal methods, i.e., it lingers in us for a few days, while we're still contagious before it manifests. And so it's sneaky, and that's just it. You don't know whether you got it or they've got it, and by the time you realize you have it, you've already infected a bunch of people. So
Yeah.
it just becomes this universal, everybody has to be careful.
I want to ask you a question before we sign off. You just played Viking.
Yeah, I did.
And how was that?
It was interesting. So
Was it hard?
no,
Oh,
No. It wasn't. So the crew was awesome. Being in South Africa was certainly an experience. It's an interesting country. It's kind of like it's a third world country with third or first world veneer.
mhm.
And so there was a lot of logistical issues we had. The experience itself of being on the Viking vessel that was built was super cool. I got to do actually a fair amount of work on the vessel itself, which was great. And we did get to sail it a few times, but not very often. We got confounded by weather and logistics.
How big was it?
It was 35 feet long by about 8-foot beam, and we had 12 people on board.
So it was quite deep.
Uh,
The keel, like
no, it had a draw of about 3 feet.
you're
Yeah.
sitting on top.
Yeah, it's sitting on top. It's a big bathtub, and it's a single mast square rig with a tiller off the side sort of thing. So it behaved very differently than most sailing vessels, which was super interesting. Obviously, more for the actual nautical types than myself, but from the way it sails. But the experience was not. I was sold a lot. We were all sold a lot, and unfortunately, the individual who started it, oh man, would we process him in one of our circles. So I'll share with you an email that I sent to him afterwards, because one of the things that I didn't do when I was there, there was 12 of us that were there, and most of us were all leaders and all very experienced explorers in different ways, definitely A-game players in their lives, and all of us not more or less kind of took a bit of a backseat, partially from the intention of not wanting to do the same thing we've always done, which is be in the lead role kind of
Yep.
thing. And so I did take on a couple of lead roles, and certainly took the initiative on a few things, but I didn't stand as tall as I could have, and I wish I had, because it would have shone a light on some of the things that we now have to deal with in the aftermath. So that's still playing itself out, but it doesn't look like well, first of all, I'm not involved anymore, like at least I won't be on the vessel. And I was actually canceled, as in terminated, because I started shining light on things that didn't want to be shone light on.
You've been known to do that before.
Yeah. And I challenged the organizer, or the expedition leader, and not without checking in with the rest of the crew first. I actually sent them the letter that I was going to send him, just to kind of make sure I wasn't totally out to lunch.
Mhm.
And I basically got a thumbs up, or, so anyways, I'll share that with you sometime. But it was a
Okay.
wonderful, the intent of the experience was great. The execution was a bit fly by the seat of the pants. And the aftermath is going to be interesting. But the
You-
crew was awesome, really good
You
people.
think that you'd be interested in sailing?
Yeah, I've always been interested in sailing, about getting a boat and doing the around the world thing with the kids and the family.
You are a McLeod, and
I am.
you know, like one of my bucket list things is I want a blue water sail. I want a South Pacific sail,
Yeah,
and it's on my list, and so I see that coming up, whether out of Australia or New Zealand, in the next, I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, that I see. I look forward to that, and so it'd be nice to have a boat though to sail up and down that little body of water between the island and the mainland.
yeah. No, that's definitely in the works. Just as soon as I can, sort out some finances and et cetera,
Well,
et cetera.
I'll bet we could find a boat out there, just to rent for weekends, or I bet there's a ton of them sitting at docks that just need somebody to kind of look after them.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to look into that. I got
Yeah.
plenty. My hands full with 2 little girls. So
I bet. Yeah. Well, they'd love a boat. I just thought of it. I mean, how many old guys have got a sailboat sitting there and it's not getting used? And I'll bet there's a ton of them. Anyway,
Yeah.
just a thought, and we'll go sailing. So I'm planting the seed.
plant away, buddy.
All right.
Good soil out here. It's good soil out here.
I hope to come and see you in the next couple of months, and when we get out of, after we get our time done, and
Yep. Yeah, our social time has been put in. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
this
I'll
is
take
not
you
a
out.
bad.
I'll
lot
take
of
you on a
guys-
couple good adventures.
A lot of guys have done isolation in a lot of rough situations, and this. I live in a beautiful home, and it's not so bad. It
Yep,
really
no
isn't.
doubt, no doubt.
Thanks so much tonight for sharing with us and your experience, and I pray that you don't get hit with a lot of that it never gets busy.
Yeah.
For you fellas, and because if it gets busy there, that'll be a lot of the First Nations people in that valley. It's I know I know Duncan area quite well.
Yeah.
And I know who lives there.
Did you happen to see the PSAs they put out there?
I did, yeah.
Did you? So I've been obviously the the acronym that I've been putting out there is that distance, isolate, and protect, right?
Yeah.
DIP. So yeah, just distance yourself in public spaces, isolate, protect yourself when you're out there, right? So that's what we got to do.
Don't be a dipshit.
Don't be a dipshit. Exactly.
Yes, I watched them.
Yeah.
Okay, love you, brother.
Okay. Have a great night. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.
Ciao.